So I've just been sitting here doing some work, and it strikes me that one of the biggest principles and themes that my clients come to me with is balancing this idea of having internal alignment versus still going out into the world and having drive, success, and ambition. And the crux of the argument here that I'm about to make, or the crux of the explanation that I'm going to give you, is that we need to move away from the idea of balancing and move towards the idea of harmonizing. If we're balancing something, it's like we have two different power plants within us, okay? Or two different power plants that we're managing. They each have their own conductors, they have their own teams managing them, they have their own manager managing them, and they have to coordinate. And there's all this extra complexity and added nuance that you have when you're managing these two power plants rather than just managing one. And if we're trying to balance, it would be like trying to split your time and effort between these two power plants. And all that does is it gets you 50-50 results. So one of the common pain points that I see with people is that they feel that although they have attained a new level of awakening, let's say, or they are looking at things more deeply than they were before, they're still getting out competed, or people are still showing up in the world better than them who don't have these realizations, who aren't looking internal, who aren't doing meditation, who aren't doing shadow work, who aren't using all of this stuff which has promised them so much good, like self-help, self-improvement, self-actualization, and yet they're still seemingly not as successful as the people around them who aren't doing any of that stuff and are just showing up, right? And it's like, why is that happening to me? Is there something special about me? Is there something about me which means that I can't attain that level of success? Because I'm over here doing all this extra stuff, and yet this other person who's not doing any of that is still able to live a much better life than me. And it's because these people, how we can look at it, is they just have access to one of these power plants. So their full time and their full resources and their full effort can go into just managing one. That means the operation is more streamlined, and that means that you're going to get a better output, because you're just then, if you were just managing at half stretched, balancing the two, which is what a lot of people in the self-help community, a lot of people in the self-actualization community are doing. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that we should go back to one? No. Does that mean that we should stay in this balancing act and continue to be, to put it bluntly, outperformed by everyone else around us? And when I say performance, what I mean is a holistic performance. They also seem to not be stressed, not be worrying about their internal world, as well as actually getting the external quote unquote success that maybe we might be thinking that we are owed, even though we aren't having it in our world. Well, I'll put it to you like this. I was working, and I still am working, with a couple of doctors, but the main person is one of them, okay? And we've been doing a lot of internal work, working on we talked about in the last podcast, internal architecture. Basically, that's a fancy term for making sure that we're all good in here without disowning anything outside of us. And what was happening is, obviously, to be a doctor, it's a very grueling process. You have to be very smart. You have to have a lot of drive, patience, and effort, all of these amazing things. But as he was going through that process, parts of shadow work was unlocking for him. Hypnotherapy was unlocking for him. Stages International was unlocking for him, which is developmental psychology. All of these cool concepts were making his worldview so much more nuanced and so much deeper and so much richer than maybe the people around him in medical school. And this was not the advantage that maybe you might think, exactly like we're talking about. Because whilst he has this whole other power plant that's opening up, and that he's having to put resources and time and train the right people, everyone else is just operating on their one. More streamlined, more effective, more efficient. So actually, when it came time, when he graduated from being a doctor, and now he's a fully licensed doctor, instead of going into a specialty or maybe really taking that career path really seriously, instead he kind of just did the safe option, because it was all too much to handle at once, pretty much. There were some other reasons, but that was a big part of it. So when we were working together in this time period, first of all, what we did is we introduced the idea of harmony. And here's what changed with him. What harmony is then, if two power plants are fighting or for resources, and it's a balancing act between keeping them both alive, then harmony would be making them come into one big power plant. It's like two bodies of water flowing into one each other and making a massive body of water. which has so much more richness, so much more aliveness, because the ecosystem's bigger, so much more depth, so much more power, so much more resources. That's what harmony is. And for him, what that meant was he had something building, bottom up, which was I can use all my background as a medical professional and then build a business that I want to do with my other friend, right, which was another friend that I was working with at the time. And when he was just focusing on balancing the two, these two were split. Like there was his job and then there was all this stuff that he was interested in. Now, as soon as we brought those two together and they flowed from harmony, he was able to use all of his intelligence, all of his drive, all of his ambition that led him to become a doctor in the first place, fused with all of this internal architecture, building the internal systems, building the internal ecosystem, almost like a secret weapon, right? Which is what we work on here in self-actualization systems. And what that did is it gave a direction to all of that drive, motivation, and empowerment that he had from his whole life story, but in the vehicle of something that he actually wanted to do that was deeply authentic with him. So he opened his own business. I'm not going to say what kind of business it was, but it was kind of in line to the stuff that we were already doing, and his background really helped him with that. And then one of the first few months, he made 10 to 20K a month, way more than he ever made as a doctor, right? And now he's living pretty much his dream outcome, good relationship, can travel the world, all that kind of good stuff, right? This came from the principle of harmony versus balancing. You don't have to balance internal drive, internal ambition, and internal alignment. They are one and the same. The internal drive and ambition and want for success is an amazing ego state, or it's an amazing place, it's an amazing factor into what we want to do. But that's what it is. What it needs is the right direction. And if you clicked on this video, then it's probably because the direction that it was coming from, like just wanting to build wealth, or just wanting to be successful for the sake of being successful, just wanting to do something ambitious, right? All that kind of stuff is no longer enough. You need to harmonize the two. You don't need to balance the two. Remember what we said about splitting resources? You need to unify. Whenever you can unify, you get all of the depth, the power, the resources that unification gives you, whilst also getting all the benefits of maybe having a simpler structure, like it's more streamlined because you're not fighting against each other. There's no management that has to pick between the two. There's just one. If that sounds really interesting to you, I have the most practical guide to do shadow work on the internet in my link below. It's completely free. It's a 3-hour course on shadow work where I give you the massive overview, the big picture principles, distilled all the way down into how you can actually run sessions for yourself, by yourself, so that you can get to the deep core wound, not just healing symptoms, not just healing triggers, but actually getting to the root of how your personality works, unraveling it and healing it with love, light, and liberation, right? Like I said, it's completely free. Go and sign up. It will change your life. Because what that will help you do is, we're talking about a principle here. It's good. It's big picture. In my other videos, I also have much more step-by-step systematic guides to give you some kind of practical tools to actually go out and do it. And that's why my shadow work course is so valuable, and why I made it, actually, because it's a good resource to just go and reference. Because if there is a divide between you, how we can look at that is as a split ego state. There's one side which is wanting to do the old way and can't really distill all of the benefits of the old way, like all of the benefits of the old way of just pushing for pushing's sake, or just having drive, just having ambition for ambition's sake. All of that is amazing, but we need to divorce it from the idea that that's the only way we can do it. Because if we do it that way, I mean, almost all my clients have suffered from burnout, procrastination, issues around fulfillment, being happy, all that kind of stuff, whilst having had the success. So they got the success that they thought would make them all of these things, but in actuality, it just made it, or it didn't make it worse, it just brushed it under the carpet, and now there's no more carpet to hide under, and now they're asking all of these questions. So we need to divorce it from that and just take the good stuff, which is all of the drive, the ability to even set achievements and set goals, and we need to fuse it with a new emerging want, which you'll probably have if you click this video and you're watching it up until now, which is something deeper. Something where my internal community and my internal ecosystem and my internal alignment is part of the win that I'm pushing for, right? And how we do that is by looking at shadows and working with ego states specifically. Because when we can get these ego states to talk and really come alive, in their discussion, then we can remember that we're all on the same side. And at this management, if we're talking about the two power plants, this management doesn't have to be a dividing force, but it's actually something that unifies because we're on the same side. And if you want more detail on that, like I said, I have my most practical guide to do shadow work on the internet in the link below. That actually gives you the tools and the frameworks to get started. Even if you're advanced, or I designed it so that you can be a beginner all the way up to advanced. It's going to 10x your progress in internal work, in shadow work. But alternatively, we also have the last podcast that I just put up, something like 60 minutes to find your authentic purpose, where we go into a much more step-by-step guide in how to actually do this. Hope this was helpful for you. Enjoy.